It was a unique and transformative experience. I didn't usually up to that point get to do much emotional, serious work, dramatic work like that, and so that was challenging and scared me a little bit. Let alone doing it with Jack Lemmon, who was very into it. I mean, that sounds silly because obviously he was always into his work, but he seemed to have a very personal and emotional connection to the material. And we found out about halfway through shooting it, it's because he was quite ill, very ill. And I think he was finding a lot of comfort in working on that role, given that he was dying. I don't know how else to say it. It was actually helping him, and he was an open book. I don't know if he was always that way, but maybe because of the role he was playing or because he was dying while he was doing it. He didn't die right. He lived another year or two after that, but he got very, very sick right after we were shooting. And I don't know whether he was always that open or just because of the timing in his life. But he was very forthcoming about his life, his work. And I realized that quickly, and I'm not stupid. I asked him, I mean, it was like having can you imagine getting to sit next to Jack Lemmon for 6 weeks and to get to ask him anything about acting you feel like, and he was willing to give long answers? He said the older he got, kind of similar to what I mentioned earlier, one of the things that put the bug in my ear to not be so perfectionistic about getting things right, necessarily finding one way to do them right. He said that early in his career, he would really work it all out, especially comedically. It was almost like a dance that was choreographed, that he really took the time to exactly how he was going to do it. And he was rather brilliant at doing that, as we know from like Some Like It Hot and many other things. He said, but as he got older, he got less and less interested in planning a specific way of doing it, and just kind of would set what was important to him personally about the material, about whatever he was doing, and just kind of show up and commit to that. And maybe there might be a few different ways he might go about trying to achieve that result that character wants, and just try them. And I remember when he said it, I was about 34 or 35. It sounded like a good idea, but I couldn't imagine really being brave enough to do that. And I'm happy to say that my journey the last 15 years has been getting me to a place of taking that advice more to heart. And some actors do that naturally, but I didn't. Did you know that I guess people know this. Jack Lemmon, before every take, would say the same thing. He'd say magic time for and I mean every single take. And he knew it kind of got annoying, so he would switch it up by going like, le temps magique, or tempus magicus. He'd say it in French or Latin, but he did it every single time. It was a real superstition he had. He talked about his father was a baker, and I related to this because he couldn't. He worked for his dad some, and I worked for my dad too. He never really wanted to be a baker. Thank goodness for the rest of us that he didn't feel like being a baker. But he said that his father said to him that when he stopped, I think the phrase he used was, when I stop seeing, it was something like, when I stop falling in love with each loaf of bread I make, then I know it's time to stop doing it. And that's how Lemmon felt about acting. And I know that's how my dad felt about making clothes, and how I feel about acting. The other big thing he said is, don't ever stop learning. You never stop being a student of it. There's never like, oh, now you figured it all out. He said, because in his opinion, if you weren't actively learning, it was calcifying. It was stagnating. So you had to keep pushing it. There wasn't much acting required. You're there playing a guy who's having a very hard time watching someone he loves die. Once I knew that Jack really was quite that ill.
Oh, you learned it through the.
Yeah, we learned it before it was done. It wasn't. I mean, there's Jack Lemmon, and he was very raw emotionally. You can tell in the performance, and he would share a lot of personal stuff, about meant to him.
Wanna
He
go-
actually said it was his favorite role.
Really?
Yeah, and I was like, Jack, really? Because you got a few doozies there. He's like, no, no, no. And then with hindsight, realizing that I think it might have been,
The most personal.
yeah,